Are meal times a serious struggle? Does your child eat a limited number of foods? Does your child eliminate entire food groups? Are you tired of waiting for them to just grow out of it? Welcome to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater, where you'll learn strategies to help your picky eater expand their palate. With Christine Yoder, a pediatric feeding specialist, speech pathologist, mom of a child with feeding issues, and author of Mealtime Mindset. Let's get started. Here's Christine.
Hi, welcome. My name is Christine, and I come to you every week to talk about different topics relating to meal times and picky eaters and eating healthy, things like that, to try to make your meals less stressful, more nutritious, and just kind of like bring fun and ease and joy back to family meal times. And that's actually the topic of today, family meals and the importance of family meals and a lot of the benefits of it. So I kind of came up with these four things that we're going to chat about today relating specifically to why we might want to, make an effort to do family meals. And I do say effort because it does not come very easily for most of our families. A lot of our kids don't want to even sit at the table with their families for various reasons. Usually, some sensory reasons play into that. But nevertheless, it does sort of create this like disjointed mealtime of like, okay, well, your picky eater is going to eat separately from you, maybe at a separate table, maybe at a separate time. And the goal is definitely to have more family meals. And that's part of just sort of healing this relationship with food. It's bringing everyone together too, right? Because food is very much about community and sharing time with other people. For literally centuries, like that's really, how people experienced food and interacted with food. And it was a very social sort of gathering. And it's for many of our families, there is a lot of disconnection that happens with the meal times. And that sort of it sort of carries over into other areas of life as well, right? You might just think, okay, well, they're just going to have this meal by themselves, but it does carry over into that sort of disconnection that we see, is just throughout their lives. And we have heard so many times how social media can kind of cause that disconnection too, and that's a topic for another day. But I do want to sort of see if we can like start to heal and bridge this sort of gap between like your kids eating separately from you. And I'm not saying that has to be for every meal. We're just saying like maybe like one thing at a time. Let's start with one meal at a time, even just one meal per week. And it doesn't even have to be a full big meal. It could even just be a snack time where you're sitting together. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, this is such a hurdle. How am I going to just change everything about our lives to like do these family meals now? And I really don't want you to stress about that. We're really just going to take it like one day at a time, one meal at a time, and just think practically about it. Like don't make it into it. The idea is not to make it stressful. Like we want to take the stress out of our lives. So I'm not trying to add to the stress, I guess, if that makes sense. And long-term gains, I think you will find that family meals can be enjoyable and do make your day more joyful and less stressful. Sometimes getting to that point might be a little tricky, but I feel like for the families that do the family meals, that benefit and that like connection definitely, I think most families would say like, oh, it's totally, totally worth, a little bit of effort in the beginning. But like I said, let's just take it one small step at a time. So let's dive into some of the details. One of the biggest things that is so important with, you know, putting this family meal thing into perspective is, you are really your kids' model. And, when you want your kids to be eating the same foods as you, it's important for them to actually see you eating those foods. And a lot of times, what happens is, and I am 100% guilty of this as well, and just it's not every day that, like every meal we have are together and it's perfect. Like that's just not realistic either. But I'm so guilty of, okay, like I'm just going to set you up with your food and then I'm going to like make my thing, or I'm going to go do this other thing while you're, quiet and eating, right? Of course that's going to happen sometimes. But I do try to remind myself as well that like, okay, like what I'm making now is really what I'd love for him to eat. So ideally we should really be sitting at the table eating this at the same time, Christine, like these are the conversations I have even just with myself. So of course I'm not perfect, but um yeah, we want our kids to see what we're eating. So if you're like, man, one day they'll have a salad, that would just be incredible because you love salads and you make them all the time. And it would be just so easy to make a big salad if everyone would just eat it, right? But, making sure that they're actually watching you eating those things and preparing those things even would be great. But yeah, being that model and even just seeing you how you chew the food, you know, you might not think that kids are like staring at your mouth, watching you, listening to you eat, but on a subconscious level, your senses are taking all of those things in. They might not be staring at you, watching how you're eating that food, but if they're talking to you and glancing at you, it's going to happen subconsciously that they are somewhat taking that in. They might be hearing how you're crunching foods. You know, they're smelling the food. There's sensory things that happen being in the environment of that food. So, keeping that in mind, being mindful that you are that model, especially, we always say this like when for babies, but it happens throughout our lives as well. Just being exposed to other people eating those foods nearby in front of you, that's going to, and them having a positive experience with that food is, going to make that food less threatening to your child. So that's something to remember and take into consideration. If you can get them at the table with you at all while you're eating. And sometimes, it might not work out timing wise perfect, but even if, let's just say your kids are doing homework or they're playing on their device, even if they can maybe do that at the table while you're eating so that you're still in the same sort of environment with one another while that food is present, that new food, that different food that you're eating. If it's there, that's I'd say a good first step. Okay. Yeah, so that's number one that kids like really learn by watching. Number two, and this is a big one, but it's talking time. And of course, we always say, like, don't talk with your mouth full. And there's like some safety considerations. We don't want choking, of course, but in between bites, and just as we're coming off of, we had Easter yesterday. We celebrate Easter, and there was, a lot of food and eating and family being together and talking, so in between those bites and listening to people talking at the table. And, that's just sort of like what holidays and family meals are just all about. Like, I always think about those types of big events that surround food. And sometimes this is really hard. And I remember being a kid and thinking, oh my God, they're just going to ask me like how my day was again. Like, and I would give that typical answer of like, nothing happened. Um, I totally feel, when parents are like, I try to talk to my kids, but they just won't talk back to me about what happens with their day. But as I've like taken courses and gotten, practice sort of working and getting kids to talk. As a speech pathologist, I spent a lot of time figuring out how to get kids to talk to me. So I've gotten some tips from psychologists and different programs and courses that I've taken over the years. But we want it to be a great bonding experience. And I think sometimes not knowing what to say can even hold us back from that or make us frustrated. Like, oh, I asked them what happened today and they just said nothing. Very typical response. But I'm going to suggest maybe some different changing the way you ask the question actually can have a completely different outcome. So instead of saying like, how was your day? Or like whatever your predictable go-to phrase is that hasn't worked yet, I'm going to say we're going to try to replace that with a different phrase. So this is always a good one. Like, tell me something funny that happened today. Um, so you're asking for something specific. So it's not so open-ended that it's like, oh my gosh, I have to think of something. It's like it's fairly specific, but with a little bit of open-endedness. Um, and funny, we want positivity at the table. So I wouldn't say, tell me something sad or bad that happened at school today. We want the table to be associated with positive things. So if you're always talking about what's going wrong in the world, how the economic system is, gone crazy, and how housing prices are too much, we want those are all negative things. Like we're going to try to keep a positive going at the table, because we want our kids to associate the table with fun, funny memories, good stories, happiness, smiles. We don't want any other further excuses for our kids to not want to be at the table. So think positive thoughts. Think about positive things that we can bring up. So yeah, tell me something funny that happened. I love that. And tell me something good that happened today. What went well today? What did what was something great that happened? So again, staying on that positive message train, we want to bring any sort of goodness from their day and talking about that at the table. But even just maybe those questions are great. And if you have nothing else to say, you can always, tell a funny story about something that happened to you that day. It doesn't always have to be about getting them to engage. Even if they don't want to engage with you, you can even just start talking about something funny that happened on your day. And if they're sitting at the table, they will be absorbing that and listening to some degree. Um, you could talk about maybe if there's a TV show or a movie that you guys have seen recently, talking about a book that you guys are reading, or a book maybe your child's reading at school. Um, those are just some different ideas. But and when all else fails, you could even just talk about the food. Like, oh wow, I was looking forward to having this all day today. Right? It doesn't have to be, you don't even have to engage them. You could just be like, you might think you're a little bit crazy person talking to yourself, but if they are there, they are listening and absorbing, even if they say nothing to you at all. So, just talking about your food, like, oh, this smells amazing. Oh, it's so crunchy. Oh, wow, it's so sweet. This is awesome. Or like, oh, I'm so surprised. This tastes different today. Oh, these blueberries, they're really in season right now. Whatever it is, but you can just talk about the food. And again, like I said, they're listening and absorbing if they are there. And as long as it's a positive thing, that I think will only help them. All right. So we've got two more. And if you are struggling with getting your kids to eat and you haven't already taken our free quiz, please do. It is pickyeaterstest.com, eaters with an S at the end. There's another website that I think is, I don't know, it doesn't work. It's similar. So picky eaters with an S test. And that's a good place for you to start. We give you some suggestions based on the types of answers that you give on what is the next step should be. Okay, moving right into number 3. So this sort of goes along with the second one, but lessening the stress around food, taking that pressure off, of course, is something we always talk about. Um, but we want kids to feel comfortable at the table and not nervous that it's going to be like food test on trial, like, okay, like what's going to happen, like what are they going to make me eat, what are they going to make me touch or smell or lick or whatever. So we don't want them anticipating something bad happening at the table. um, so keeping that pressure off is going to be really important as always. And another way to de-stress, and it's almost like they call these like icebreakers, and like when I remember when we did, groups, and when I worked in the school or first day of school, we would kind of play games like this to get to know one another and just like kind of break the ice and take that like stressful moment out of the room. So one of them was two truths and a lie, and they had to like guess like what was the lie. So you could do something like that even about your day, like two things that really happened and one thing that didn't happen. Try to guess which one is the lie. So that's always a fun game. So even if your kids are sitting at the table, not even wanting to eat the food, tell them like, "Hey, I'm eating, but can you just come and play this game with me?" And see if they'll come and engage with the game. So it doesn't even always have to be a conversation. It could be a game because games are usually fun and not stressful, hopefully. There's also like the would you rather game, which is always great. Would you rather doesn't have to be food related, but it can. Would you rather, I don't know, like just do something like, I don't know, have to, go across, I don't know, like 20 monkey bars or, jump across, lava rocks. I don't know. Just something crazy. As crazy as and funny as you'd like to be. Um, but that game of would you rather. So you have to like pick a scenario. And that's always a fun one to play too. And like I said, games taking away the stress, right? Okay. And our last one is consistency, routine, and predictability. So eating together consistently will give kids that feeling of safety that comes with predictability. Like, okay, it's dinner time. And there's that expectation of, okay, well, my family's going to be with me at dinner time, or this is where I'm going to be for the next 45 minutes, or whatever it is. And that when there's that predictability of what to expect at the table with your family, um, that will make kids feel safe, right? Kids feel safe with boundaries, with predictability, routines. And when kids feel safe, they are much more likely to try new foods. Their nervous system is relaxed, right? You can't learn new things about food, about anything, when you're in fight or flight mode, when you're nervous about what's coming next. And there's that not sure, that unpredictability, I guess, that could come with meal times, of are they going to make me eat this today? What are they going to make me talk about something that I don't want to talk about? Or, who's going to be there today? There's, as much as you can do to prepare kids of what to expect, and um, giving them that comfort with that routine and as much as possible. And I might be talking about switching up their routine by even being at the table, but I'm talking about like the long term, like when you're consistent with something and predictable, there is that comfort that you can like relax into that moment of like, well, I know it's coming. I know it's gonna, I know who's going to be there. I know what the types of conversations we're going to have. I know nothing bad's going to happen here. I know I'm safe here. That's when you might see kids start to explore new foods, talk about the foods, drop their guards, put it in their mouth. There's something about when they're going to put it into their mouth, when they're going to chase that food, there's something about in that moment, they might feel safe for whatever reason to do so. So the more we can cultivate those feelings of safety, the more kids are going to explore and try new foods. So, and a lot of that really can be shaped by your mealtime routine with them and just being there as a source of funny moments and comfort and love, and encouragement that that would I think that's really what kids so need. And I think more than ever, kids really need this time with their families because they don't need any more disconnection. They're already very disconnected. They want to be on their devices, on social media. Um, and that connection to your family is what's going to, give your kids confidence to be themselves and to, you know, consult you if they're having a problem. You want them to come to you first, not to the internet first. So, being that source for them of stability and safety and comfort, I think is more important than ever in this time, right? This is 2024. And I think it's so relevant to have this conversation now more than ever. And I hope you guys sort of take some of these maybe strategies to heart, maybe test them out, give them a little road test and see how things go. And I'd love to hear your feedback on what is hard about having family meals and if any of these strategies worked for you. So definitely find me on Instagram at Foodology Feeding and let me know. I'm going to put up a poll today about this for this podcast episode. So, please be sure to give me your feedback on it. um, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. And of course, if you need any of our support, please visit our website at foodologyfeeding.com, and we have so many resources there for you. And looking forward to helping you out. All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.